Meanwhile, the white boat flew over the waves almost as if it were skimming the surface, giving Samid, Megan, and Lanny a smooth and most enjoyable ride. It had been a cinch to start it. The instructions and spells were posted right next to the compass, practically begging them to take it for a ride. "This is more fun than flying on Simber's back," Lanny shouted from the helm. She turned the wheel, slowly from one side to the other, leaving a lazy S wake behind them. Megan agreed. Her face, now rosy from the wind and sun, looked decidedly healthier than just hours before. She stood on the seat next to Lanny, gripping the top edge of the windshield and letting the wind rush past her, trying not to smile too much in case there were bugs. "It's not bad," Samid said. He sat in a seat near the back of the boat, leaning forward and gripping his stomach. His face looked anything but healthy. Can you stop going back and forth like that, though?" Lanny glanced over her shoulder and straightened out the wheel immediately. "Oh, sorry. Hey, you're not about to glug up your lunch, are you?" She slowed the speed a hair as well. "Because if you do, try going for anywhere except inside the boat, right?" Samid scowled. "I'm fine. Just stop the spinning already." The girls exchanged smirks, but kindly left poor Samid to suffer the queasiness in private. After a quarter of an hour or so, Megan scanned the horizon and turned to Lanny in surprise. "Are you aiming for the island?" Lanny shrugged. "I thought we could, get near it, see what's there." Megan squinted. "What if people are there? That would be so weird." They'd never seen people from other islands before the two visitors landed on the shores of Arteme. They'd never even known there were other lands or other people until recently. "Yeah," Lanny said. "This is where Mr. Today came from. He said it was beautiful and the people were nice." She stared ahead at the looming island, every now and then looking back over her shoulder so she would know how to get back to Arteme. She watched the compass too, having learned a little bit about sailing in her vast amounts of reading. After a while, Samid got up and walked to where the girls were. He stood behind Lanny, taking mental notes on how she was driving. "Feeling better?" Lanny asked kindly. "Yes, now that we stopped rocking side to side," he said. "Thanks." He looked around at the vast ocean, then ahead at the island. "It's so strange to see it getting bigger," he said. Lanny nodded. She didn't quite understand the feelings that were swirling around inside her stomach. She was nervous and excited, and scared too. But most of all, she was intrigued to learn more, as was often the case with her. She couldn't get enough stories of other worlds, like the ones they'd read in her literature class and actor's studio, and the ones that she'd made up and told to friends and neighbors back in Quill, which got her sent away. Now she was determined to see another new world for herself, rather than just read about it or make it up in her head. It was a lofty goal, and it was happening right now. By mid-afternoon, they drew close enough to see that there were few visible rocks along the shore and lots of sand. There was no lawn, no mansion, no people or creatures walking about as far as they could tell. Just a length of beach and a grove of palm trees behind, and then the land built up towards the middle of the island, where enormous rocks rose grandly into the air. Water tumbled from the rocks, and rich green vegetation grew thick and tall all around. Lanny slowed the boat, and they drifted toward the island. It was so quiet that they couldn't even hear the calm lap of the waves on the beach. The three began to whisper without realizing it, as they grew near, perhaps feeling the sacredness of their discovery, realizing this truly was the same paradise that Mr. Today had talked about. It was pure beauty to look at. There was no thought now of Mr. Today or Claire Morning perhaps being upset that they'd borrowed the boat without asking. No imagination of what might be happening back in Arteme at this very moment, and only a little trepidation from these adventurers regarding the unknown. There was just this one beautiful cove they were in, blissful and quiet, warm sun and light breeze rocking gently on waves. It was exactly what Megan needed. She closed her eyes and breathed in the tropical scent. It was almost like Arteme, but after a few hours at sea, it felt fresh and new, and splendidly free of Sean and her mean, stupid parents, and all of the stresses that hung on her back in Arteme. She felt like a new, energized Megan, a bold, invigorated Megan, without a care here in this new place. "Let's go ashore," she whispered. Lanny and Samid stared at her. "What?" Lanny asked, incredulous. "I mean it," Megan said. "Let's go, let's do it." Lanny and Samid caught glances and stared for a moment, trying to get a sense of how the other was feeling. Was it a reckless move? Samid worked his jaw, his eyes intense, reading hers. Lanny couldn't look away. She knew there were risks. What if it wasn't as nice as Mr. Tay remembered it? "Well?" Megan said, breaking the stare off. Lanny and Samid looked at Megan, then back at each other. Lanny started laughing lightly, trying to get Samid to soften the intensity around his eyes that they all knew so well. "I'm game," she said. She reached out her hand and brushed his elbow, trying to communicate without saying blatantly, "I think this would be good for Megan." "Sam, are you in?" "Guys, I don't know. We don't know anything about this place. What if the strangers came from here?" Mr. Today said this was a good place. It's exactly as he described it to me and Alex. The rock formation in the middle, the waterfall, the beauty of it all. Lanny bit her lip. Samid closed his eyes and sighed, shaking his head the smallest bit. "Okay," he said finally. Megan's grin was payment enough to make everyone feel like they just made the best decision of their lives. Clearly, it's a bad decision.